Hi, we're here today with Rhode Island Transit Riders and several other environmental and urban organizations to protest the bill that is going to be heard in a little while that would put Peter Alviti as the head of the RIPTA board and would pack the RIPTA board with an additional member, which we think Rogério has undue influence over. And so we view this as a really unnecessary distraction from the real work the legislature has to do with RIPTA, which includes addressing the fiscal cliff that RIPTA faces after their COVID money has run out. They need to recoup some operating costs, and RIPTA is in the process of electrifying its fleet. All of this forward momentum is something that we're going to need funds for, and for the Transit Master Plan, which among other things would create more routes like the R line, which runs every 10 minutes. It's got signal priority, stops are farther apart, so it's very quick for people. We want to see more rapid lines like that. Potential for a rapid route from Central Falls to Warwick, which could either be a rapid bus like the R line or rail. RIPTA got a grant to study that, but we can't do truly visionary things like that unless we have the funding called for in the Transit Master Plan. And so we view this as a really unnecessary distraction. There's no reason at all to have car-centric Peter Alviti as the head of RIPTA. He's said personally that he doesn't think people will mode shift from cars onto public transit, so that really puts him at odds with us as riders. He's spending $85 million to widen Cranston canyons, and that's just adding an extra mile to a highway for what? It's induced demand. People are just going to drive more on there, and it will just lead to further highway widening in the future. There's no reason to be spending that kind of money on highway widening when we are facing climate change, and the Act on Climate is not something that RIDOT is in compliance with, whereas it is something that RIPTA has been a part of combating climate change with the electrification of their bus fleet. So we really do not see RIPTA and RIDOT's goals or visions aligning here. And so we are here today to ask legislators to oppose this bill that would put Peter Alviti as the board chair and pack the board, and to fund the Transit Master Plan and get RIPTA over this fiscal cliff. Next, I'm going to introduce John Flaherty.
Thank you. Hello, John Flaherty with ProSmart Rhode Island. We see this bill as a solution in search of a problem, frankly. RIPTA is not broken, but it is severely underfunded. We wish that this bill was actually addressing RIPTA's fiscal cliff, which we've all known about for some time. And the fact that Rhode Island invests the least amount of state money in public transportation, particularly when you compare Rhode Island to other urbanized states in our part of the country. With the support of the General Assembly, the opportunity exists right now for RIPTA to leverage transit investments, to strengthen Rhode Island's economy, to make significant gains in meeting the Act on Climate targets, to revitalize neighborhoods and downtowns, and to save Rhode Islanders thousands of dollars each year on transportation costs. So we hope that we can work with the legislature to address what is the real need, as opposed to spending this time working on a non-problem, frankly. Thank you. I'm going to pass it to Cedric. No? Pass it to Barry first, and maybe Cedric after.
Okay. I'm Barry Scholler. I'm a member of Transit Riders. I was on the board of RIPTA back in the 1990s, so I know how the board operates. And the chair, to a large extent, dominates what the agenda is, what the public hears about RIPTA. And I don't think it's appropriate that the DOT director, any DOT director, who is inherently going to be oriented toward the highways, should be the primary or a primary spokesperson for the transit system. This particular director is particularly hostile to public input. He canceled the quarterly roundtables that community groups had with RIDOT directors in the previous 3 administrations. Republican governors Almond and Carcieri and Independent, Link Chafee, all had DOT directors that talked that over with community groups. The current director canceled that and instead has imposed his will or tried to, for example, proposing a really bad idea for breaking up the downtown hub and scattering the buses, making the system far less convenient and more confusing for riders. That's not the kind of person we want speaking for RIPTA.
In closing, I am Patricia Robb, co-chair of Rhode Island Transit Riders, and we call on the legislature to quit trying to micromanage the structure of RIPTA and instead work with us, work with RIPTA, work with RIDOT, work with other interested groups to find the money to address the fiscal cliff before we have to reduce bus service, and also to start implementing the transit master plan by funding it as well, so that we will have a bus system that we can be proud of for the 21st century. Thank you for coming.
Got a question, Mr. Flaherty from GrowSmart.
Yes.
Talk to us about the impact of the R line in its first full year of operation from your perspective, working for a not-for-profit that looks at urban sprawl, looks at transportation issues, and really has a sort of a topside view on the big picture.
Well, the R line was the first experiment in rapid bus, and it's the busiest route in the entire state, running from Pawtucket to Cranston. It carries the most number of people, and when RIPTA electrifies that route fully, I believe it's 20% of all riders will be riding on electric buses. So it's really a precursor to the next step up, which is bus rapid transit, where you actually have enhanced facilities and where you've got more dedicated lanes and it moves people more quickly.
Now, the R line is still free, correct?
It is.
Now, what impact does a potential fiscal cliff have on that? Because from what we've seen at our little network, it's democratized mass transportation to a degree that I don't know if anyone really anticipated.
Well, if we approach the fiscal cliff and if we go over the fiscal cliff, that would probably be the least of our worries, because there would be massive cuts to service. And I don't think that we'd be looking at having any free fare pilots at that point. It would just decimate the service.
Can I just ask, like devil's advocate, why shouldn't the RIPTA be under Department of Transportation, since it's another alternative form of transportation?
Well, I think if you look at most transit agencies around the country, they do operate as independent transit authorities. The other agency that's worth comparing to is the state of Delaware. They're the only other statewide transit service, and their history is that they went under their DOT back in 1971, and then later reversed and went back to being an independent authority.
Right.
We think that they've got the requisite expertise to run and operate a transit system, and frankly, transit riders are justifiably they're justified in their concern about having RIDOT run transit. I mean, you heard earlier Barry talked about the failed transit hub proposal, the fact that they left facilities out of the Pawtucket Central Falls Transit Center, and RIPTA is now restoring those. So RIPTA looks at it more from a passenger's perspective, and we need more of that. They just need to be funded.
Yep.
There was a recent seminar here at the State House run by Senator DePalma about the impact of electrification of automobiles on the gasoline tax. And do you worry that that will become the obsession with the state in terms of how they look at revenue and where they apportion it?
You're talking about the, repeat the question?
All right, so in other words, the state actually had a seminar last week.
Yeah.
Syracuse University students had come in and done a study, and they brought it to the state. And it's looking at the impact of electrification on automobiles,
Yeah.
and the resultant impact on gasoline tax revenue.
Right.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah.
And
There's no question that we have to address the declining source of gas tax. It's got to be replaced. And there's a number of proposals for doing that. And we wouldn't be an outlier in pursuing a vehicle miles traveled tax, for example, to replace the gas tax.
I just want to add that RIPTA has already seen a decline in the gas tax revenue, a small decline, but it's projected to be an accelerating decline in years to come. So we're glad that the legislature is looking into how to replace it. It's absolutely essential for RIPTA operations to have that revenue.
Thank you.
Good, thanks.
All right.